On this episode of Gravely Amusing, it's the history of the Addams family. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Gravely Amusing, the only horror history podcast that snaps twice all the time. Every time I snap twice. I don't know. When someone gives me attitude, I also snap twice. I don't know. Maybe I get it from this show that came in the 60s or this movie in the 90s that I'm going to talk to you about today. That's right. Today is finally the history of the Addams family, starting with how it was created, who created it, and bring you up to speed on what happened in the shows and how those came to be, and get you up to Wednesday, because Wednesday just ended about a few weeks ago here. We dropped it, and we're working on this history of the Addams family. So, gonna educate you and tell you how things came to be. So let's get to it. So the Addams family was created by Charles Addams, and Charles Addams was actually born in on January 7th, 1912, in Westfield, New Jersey. His parents were Grace M. Spear and Charles Huey Dewey Louis Addams. And his father was actually a trained architect and ran a piano company. And from an early age, Charles showed artistic ability. He pretty much drew anything he saw, and he would draw for his high school yearbook. And Charles was kind of like us listeners, fascinated by the macabre, fascinated by graveyards, cemeteries, macabre imagery, anything that would feed into his creativity and things that were spooky and kooky and anything cool like that. So after high school, he attended Colgate University, and then he eventually went to the University of Pennsylvania, which which is where I grew up in Pennsylvania. And actually, at the University of Pennsylvania, he actually got inspiration for the Addams Family Mansion from one of the old towers of the university. I believe it's the Tower of History. And you can actually go to the art wing of the university, and they have dedicated art wing to Charles Addams. So he also went to the Grand Central School of Art in New York as well. So Charles eventually got a job as a cartoonist in the New Yorker when he did a sketch of Window Washer that ran on February 6th, 1932. Eventually, throughout the year, Charles would start writing sketches of a very thin, raven haired woman in a cartoon shape, and, well, of course, cartoon shape because he drew cartoons. Duh. But she would have raven hair and be very, very skinny, very pale, very mysterious and spooky lady. And she didn't have a name. She had no name at all. And now, some believe that he based this cartoon character off of his first wife, Barbara Jean Day. But at that time, he had yet to meet her. So she wasn't really based on her at all. And he drew her, this character, and then eventually started adding family members for her. And when we got to 1938, about a year after he'd introduced his female character, he kind of had a whole family put together. And as he started drawing these characters, he eventually named them the Addams Family. And the cartoon had, no dialogue. So it would sometimes just have like a little line underneath just saying what's going on. Like the Christmas cartoon would have them decorating their butler lurch in for a Christmas tree. But these characters had no names at all. But it would eventually go in the early 60s, about 20 some years later, and an NBC executive named David Levy would approach or stumble across Charles Addams books in a New York bookstore. And he realized that the tone of the art would probably be really perfect for television. So he purchased that book and he gave a call to Charles Addams and they met in the Plaza Hotel. Sorry, I wish I could remember that whole line from Home Alone 2. But the luxurious Plaza Hotel. And the topic of adapting this cartoon for television was talked about. And Adams had been approached about television adaptations by others in the past, but he took Levy's offer because they had a shared friend in the author John O'Hara. And at the next meeting, and Adams' apartment, Levy indicated the characters will have to be named. And Adams came up with a list of these characters' names in the third meeting. And according to Levy, Adams would have little involvement with the series after these few meetings, and but he did retain the right to veto any like casting decisions, any other choices, but he did not make use of any of that power. So Levy kind of had the reins of it. And the 1960s adaptation of the Addams Family, of course, brought the series to a much wider audience and was received very well. And the series was pretty darn popular, but it only actually ran for 2 seasons. No reason for cancellation was really ever given, though it was probably due to the rise of color TV that was going on. And some say it was competing with Hogan's Heroes. And there also was another show that came out around this time called The Munsters, which we'll talk about in a couple weeks. The sudden cancellation of the show brought a lot of issues for Charles Addams. He faced a drop in income, and because the show was no longer in development, his second wife, actually at the time, was was Barbara. Her name was Barbara, and she was actually kind of started engaging in kind of legal scheming during their marriage, and she convinced Charles to sign over the rights to future television and film adaptations, as well as rights to some of his other cartoons that he was drawing. So that will come into play later because following their divorce, she retained these rights. And when 1991 came about and they were trying to come up with a new Addams Family movie, she sold those rights to the director Sonnenfeld to make the movie, and Charles didn't get part of that. And part of this deal too that his wife screwed him out of is that Charles Addams could also no longer publish comics in the New Yorker because of the ban. It's really messed up. Adams became bitter towards the magazine, obviously, for disowning his family and he made it so popular. The series and everything became very popular, but kind of around when the divorce happened, that's when Charles Adams really got screwed. Yeah, unfortunately. So now, and he eventually died in September 29th, 1988, and he was 76 years old. And even though he drew some cartoons and stuff, he would lose the rights to movie stuff. Now, he did die in 1988, and his widow or his old, his divorced wife had the rights to the Addams Family stuff. So basically, what this means is any future wife that he would marry or any like children and stuff, like they wouldn't retain their rights. His divorced wife had the rights to future film adaptations. That's what it means. So I know that he died before this 1991 movie came out, but that's what it means is that his family wouldn't receive anything that his ex-wife would receive it. So, women, what you gonna do sometimes, you know? But what I want to do now is I kind of want to go through the different characters of the Addams family and go through different shows and see basically like how the history of these characters. So let me put that together here for you. So starting in starting with the original show, this show ran from 1960. It actually ran from September 18th, 1964 to April 8th, 1966 for a total of 64 episodes. It was a 30-minute show spearheaded by David Levy, who we just talked about, and was made with a cooperation with Charles Addams. It was shot completely in black and white, and in my personal opinion, and maybe it's because I am a film geek. I don't what's the word for us? Film addict, filma phalange. I don't know what we're called, but filmophile. I don't know, but I think black and white is a lost art, and I think black and white works so well for kooky and horror movies and spooky stuff. I would really like to see some horror movies kind of go back to black and white, but in this day and age, the general audience probably, wouldn't like it too much, but I really feel it's a lost art. And yeah, but that's just me. So, the Addams Family Show was shot in black and white, aired for 2 seasons, 64 episodes. Its opening theme, which is one of the most iconic things in the whole entire universe, it goes like this. Uh, Let me look up these lyrics here. I know I suck as a podcast host, and sorry, I don't have it all together. I suck, I know. So it goes like this: they're creepy and they're kooky, mysterious and spooky. They're all together, ooky. The Addams family. Oh, there's no snap yet. My apologies. Their house is a museum. When people come to see them, they really are a scream. The Addams family. Do-do-do, do-do-do. Neat, sweet, petite. So put a witch's shawl on, a broomstick you can crawl on. We're gonna play a call on the Addams family. Do-do-do, 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 do-do-do. Yeah, see? I should have won a Tony for that, or a Grammy. But anywho, that was written by a composer named Vic Mizzy. So the ABC network originally wanted to save money by using just pre-recorded library production music for the series, but producer David Levy insisted on hiring Vic Mizzy as a composer. The show team and it was written and arranged by longtime Hollywood composer Vic Mizzy. It's dominated by a harpsichord and a bass clarinet. So, a harpsichord is very important to the Addams family. As you know, Charles Addams' father ran a piano company. A harpsichord, it's it's basically it's a musical instrument played by means of a keyboard, but it, it's hard to explain. so it has a double it's okay. So when you press a key, it raises its back end with the instrument, which in turn raises a mechanism with a small plectrum made from quill or plastic that plucks one or more strings. And you know what? I need to look up what the difference is between the three. I am the worst podcast host ever. Okay. So difference between piano, and a harpsichord. So the main difference is the sound production mechanism. So pianos use hammers to strike strings, allowing for a wide dynamic range, loud and soft. And harpsichords pluck the strings with a plectra, producing a consistent volume. Pianos offer more dynamic control and expression with a broader sonic palette, whereas the harpsichord has a consistent brighter tone and more limited dynamic range. I have no idea what that means. But when a key is pressed, on a piano, a complex mechanism activates a hammer that strikes the string, causing it to vibrate. Okay, so that's the main difference. So when a piano, a hammer is going to hit the string and determining that sound. But a harpsichord, like a harp, it plucks like a harp. There you go. Hence the name. Plucks like a harp, and and it'll it'll pluck the string like a harp. And the sound's volume is not affected by the force of the touch. They always have the same volume. So there you go. You learn a music lesson. Uh, to you listeners out there that love the facts, there you go. Brian got the facts for you. So, so the my apologies, lost my link. There we go. Okay, so that's how it came to be. And Mizzy first improvised the iconic finger snaps when he presented his composition for approval, and this improvisation worked so well it became part of kind of the percussive part of it, percussion part of it, and that is how the song came about. So now I want to talk about the characters in this show. So and go into kind of the history of them and how they work. So the 1964 show of the Addams Family is so darn important and so essential to the characters and the history and the legacy of the Addams Family, not only because it was the first show, but actually that's really it, because it was the first show. So before this show came out, these characters had no names, they had no history, there was no established canon to these characters. So everything that was done in the show was creating that canon, was creating the story behind these characters. So when when John John Aston, who was the first ever Gomez. Now John Aston, he's still alive. He's like 95 years old. If you ever watched the 1960s Batman show, John actually played the Riddler here and there and never shaved his mustache. But John Aston is very well known to be the first Gomez Addams, and John created Gomez to basically be, and some of these may be repeats of these facts as I kind of go through the history here. So I apologize. But John Aston, when Gomez was created, and actually I'm going to start with Morticia here, but I guess we're going to start with Gomez because I already started talking about him. But when Gomez was created, the origin of the name Gomez, he had no name. So when it was being developed, Charles Addams had to create names for these characters. So he suggested naming the character Repelli or Gomez. And Adams left the choice up to John Aston, and John Aston chose Gomez. Now, because Gomez is originally a Spanish surname, the character's name was actually changed to Homero. I hope I said that right. I hope I didn't butcher that. Or Homero, which is Homer in Spanish. So in Spanish viewing, they call him Homer or Homero, and that's where the surname is originated in Spain is Gomez. So when he was originally created, John Aston just had these long sessions with Charles Addams and series producer David Levy, and they gave him free reign to develop this character, to create him from scratch. So they depicted him based on the drawings. John Aston went heavy on the Latin lover type, and Aston suggested, eye rolling a lot, pencil mustache, and an absolute devotion to Morticia. And they started creating the character of Gomez. And Gomez Gomez was a retired lawyer. He is of Castilian descent, and he refers to Spain as his ancestral home. Gomez is passionately in love with his wife Morticia. Sometimes he calls her like Carami, and sometimes she speaks French back to him, which is a running gag. And he'll say, Morticia, that's French, and start kissing her arm and getting very passionate. Gomez is filthy rich, and apparently they come from old money, which can be basically kind of like usually from mortuaries and kind of like the old money and like death and kind of like real estate stuff. He owns various numerous companies and stocks. He's often following the stock ticker installed in the living room in the show. He has desk drawers and safes full of cash. He squanders money all the time. He might lose money. He'll just like he's very impulsive, and he'll just do whatever. Like money, he doesn't really care about money, but he has a crap load of it. He would be the coolest billionaire in the world. Sometimes he is doing weird versions of yoga. Sometimes he stands on his head. Sometimes he's like bending his bodies in all weird shaping as he plays solitaire. He's weird. He's usually dressed in a chalk pinstripe suit with a black tie. Sometimes they have him with a bow tie, and he usually always has a cigar with him. And the reason being is acid based a lot of Gomez's character on Groucho Marx. So, but like Groucho, Austin, being a cigar smoker, quit cigars after the series actually ended. So, yeah. So, in the later depictions of Gomez, Gomez is a very accomplished juggler. He sometimes is a knife thrower, and he does spend roughly about $1,000 a month on cigars. So, very interesting. Gomez is very athletic, as I said. He's acrobatic, and he is a multi-billionaire for sure. Now, he acquired a lot of his wealth through inheritance, investments, like I said, and most of his investments are just basically whim because he's very impulsive. And Gomez owns businesses around the world, including a swamp he bought for scenic value. He has a crocodile farm, a buzzard farm, a salt mine, a tombstone factory, uranium mine, and many, many others. In a fictional list in Forbes magazine about 20 years ago, he was ranked number 12 and the richest fictional characters with a net worth of 2.5 billion. An interesting thing here that I want to add is that according to original show canon, and this will might take effect in a future season of Wednesday on Netflix. So possible spoiler alert, everybody, okay? As a young man, Gomez was a pretty sick dude, and he gained his perfect health only after he met Morticia. So meets Morticia, and Morticia is what cures him and gives him power and health or whatnot. So something to think about. Also, there is a story that he actually was going for Ophelia and had an arranged marriage with Ophelia, and that was the Addams way, was arranged marriages. And he had an arranged marriage with Ophelia, which is Morticia's sister, who is blonde and lighter and more carefree. But when he saw Morticia, he started feeling better, and like he was so smitten with her, he dumped Ophelia for Morticia. So, spoiler alert. Gomez would later be portrayed by John Astin once again in Scooby Doo movies and later cartoons, and by Raul Julia and the Addams Family in the 90s, by Tim Curry and the Family Reunion in 1998 99. He was played by Glenn Taranto and the new Addams Family show, what they tried to launch in the 90s as well. He was played by Nathan Lane on Broadway in the Addams Family musical, which would have been amazing to see. And yeah. Oh, portrayed by, my apologies, portrayed by Oscar Isaac and the 2019 cartoon movies and 2021 cartoon movie. And his latest portrayal is by Luis Guzman in Netflix's Wednesday. And Luis and Netflix has got a lot of crap for this casting because he's not, he's not crazy attractive kind of like Raul Julia or whatever. I think Raul Julia is very, rest in peace, very implanted in our head. And Gomez isn't this handsome kind of dude. But the original cartoons of the Addams Family and the original portrayal and to be the comic book nerd here, the comic book canon, if you will, comic book accuracy, Luis Guzman is like spot on Gomez. I mean, spot on. Ripped right from the page drawing of Charles Addams. So he's really the perfect choice. And I don't think he does too bad. He really, if you listen to Finch and I's Wednesday reviews, there's not a lot that Gomez is doing, and that really needs to change. He's just kind of just there. If they're gonna go, all in with this Addams Family thing, then give Gomez something to do because he's not doing really anything. But that's neither here nor there. So, moving on to Morticia. Morticia is really where it all started. Morticia was Charles Addams's first drawing ever of a character of the Addams Family, and Morticia is the bread and butter of the Addams Family, even though she's not Addams, Gomez is. But she's really the driving force in so much of this story. And a quote from Charles Addams: "The real head of the family and the critical and moving force behind it. Low voice, incisive and subtle, smiles are rare. This ruined beauty has a romantic side too, and given to low-key rhapsodies about her garden of deadly nightshade, headbane, and dwarf's hair, generally indulgent, the often sinister activities of the children, but feels that Uncle Fester has to be held in check. Her costume is always the same, a form-fitting black gown, tattered or cut to ribbons at the elbow and feet. Occasionally she will wear a shawl. Her voice is never raised, but has great range. Contemptuous and original and with a fierce family loyalty, she never uses a cliche except to be funny. She is a thoughtful hostess in her way, and if a guest needs anything, she's advised to scream for it. The children are instructed to observe the amenities and always kick Daddy goodnight." Charles Addams said that. She was the first appeared as the, stern, aloof matriarch of the family, and she's one of the few members that actually speak in the cartoons. But yeah, so she originated in 1930s cartoons of Charles Addams, and she had no name until 1964. Charles Addams kind of selected her name because he was inspired by the term mortician, and yeah, goes by that. Morticia's maiden name is Frump, Frump, and she has an older sister named Ophelia, and we'll get to Ophelia in a second, even though we already said a little bit about Ophelia. That's really all there is to say about Ophelia, I guess. But in the television series, an original television series, okay, so what the Addams Family likes to do through the years is it likes to change the relationships between some characters and retcon them a lot. But the original canon, if you will, her mother is Hester Frump, okay? And her mother-in-law is Grandmama. So Grandmama is Gomez's mom, okay? Grandmama Addams, okay? So Hester Frump is Morticia's mom, and Grandmama is Gomez's mom, okay? And in 1990s family films, these relationships are changed. So, so Grandmama and the 90s movie gets changed to Morticia's mom, and Fester becomes Gomez's brother, when in the original show, she's Morticia's uncle. So that changes. So Morticia's mom becomes Grandmama in the 90s, and Fester becomes Gomez's brother. So they bring all these relationships that were Morticia's. Oh, I'm sorry. They change they they give Grandmama to be Morticia's mother, and they give Fester, instead of being Morticia's uncle, goes to Gomez to be his brother. Yeah, I know it's confusing. I know. Morticia is slim, and she has extremely pale skin, and she has long black hair. She usually kind of like kind of hobbles as she walks. Her clothes are very tight and form fitting, and her lower dress kind of looks almost like tentacles or just like extensions of her long hair, if you will. Yeah. So, one funny thing that Wednesday says in the original show is that Morticia applies baking powder to her face instead of real makeup. So, yeah. So, Morticia does cut off the buds of roses or the heads of roses, if you will, and keeps the stems and the thorns. And she is always like cutting paper dolls and giving it a third leg. She makes sweaters with three arms. Really weird stuff. And she has a bit of a witch stuff in her that she kind of gets from grandmama. She does have a personal pet. Every member of the Addams family, just about every member of the Addams family, kind of has their own pet. But her personal pet is Cleopatra, which is a fake breed of carnivore plant. Is called an African strangler, and she feeds it hamburgers and other meat. So she is considered a witch. She can trace her family tree back to Salem, Massachusetts. Grandmama's kind of more the witch character, though, in it. Just like the monsters had Dracula, vampire. Yeah, she's more the witch there. So, yeah. And I don't think I missed anything. Did I? Did I miss anything? Uh, no, I don't think I did. Now, in recent canon of Wednesday, on the show Wednesday, she is given psychic abilities that she's had all along, but those powers didn't really come into play until the Wednesday show. Actually, I did miss a lot, so I apologize. So she was originally played by Carolyn Jones in the original show. She was played by or voiced by Liz Torres in the cartoon. She was played by Angelica Hudson in the 90s movies of the Addams Family. She was played by Daryl Hannah in 1998. Elle Harvey in the new Addams Family. Brooke Shields in 2011. These, yeah. And she's now played by Catherine Zeta Jones. If I missed, oh yeah, she's voiced by Charlize Theron in the Addams Family cartoon movies. I probably missed some names there, and I apologize. Morticia is extremely, extremely famous. Moving on to the daughter of the Addams family, Wednesday Addams. Wednesday Addams is arguably maybe the most popular Addams family character. Debatable. she she is depicted as a morbid and kind of stoic or emotionally reserved child that's fascinated by the the darkness. And she is usually very pale and she has black pigtails, usually. Wednesday has been portrayed by several actresses in various films. She was originally played by Lisa Loring, and she's usually in this show, she's like probably about like 10 years old. And she doesn't get a lot of lines, so we don't see her too much. But when we see her, she does have a lot of funny moments. She originally, of course, was unnamed when she appeared in the cartoon, but she actually first appeared in August 26th, 1944, and with the illustration captioned, "Well, don't come whining to me. Go tell him you'll poison him right back." And when she was adapted in the 1964 show, Charles Addams named Wednesday based on the Monday's Child nursery rhyme line, Wednesday's child is full of woe. Let me try to read that whole thing. So, how this is it's like a fortune telling song that's popular as a nursery rhyme. It was written in 1836. Nobody knows who wrote it, but how it goes is Monday's child is fair of face. Tuesday's child is full of grace. Wednesday's child is full of woe. Thursday's child has far to go. Friday's child is loving and giving. Saturday's child works hard for a living. but the child that is born on Sabbath day is bonny and blithe, good and gay. Well, that's interesting. But, yeah, so that's where she got her name from. Wednesday's Child is full of woe, and that's why on the Tim Burton Wednesday show, every episode has the word woe in it. Yeah, and, her name is often acquainted to or often attributed to an actress and poet named Joan Blake, who is a friend of Charles Addams. So there's that side story there. She is the only daughter of Gomez and Morticia, and some adaptations depict her as a younger sibling, while most adaptations nowadays, I think since the 90s, depict her as the older sibling. In the original series, apparently, I got that wrong. She's supposed to be about 6, and in the original movie of Addams Family, Christina Ricci's supposed to be about 10, but I would say no way. I'd say she's about 12, maybe a little older, but whatever. What do I know? I haven't seen it in a while. But, in the animated films, I'd say she's probably about 13. That's where I would put her. The Netflix series, she's supposed to be about 15 or 16, and she is obsessed with death, and she is described as absolutely brilliant. She has a habit of doing odd experiences, usually involving death, and usually trying to kill her brother. Wednesday does care about her brother, but she does try to kill him. But Pugsley never minds. She enjoys raising spiders. She is obsessed with the Bermuda Triangle, and she has a tendency to scare the crap out of people when she enters a room because she is so pale and gothic and all that stuff. The most notable feature about her, of course, is her pigtails. And the animated series, she actually has a tattoo in her upper left arm, which depicts a heart with "woe" written on a ribbon across it. She One of the main things about Wednesday is she rarely shows her emotions. She's a very bitter person. She's a very kind of emotionally locked down person. In the original television series, her middle name is supposedly Friday. And the Netflix series says that she was actually born on Friday the 13th. So that's kind of where it comes from. But I will say, like in the 60s show, the original show, she's very more sweet natured child. She's a little spooky, but she's just a little girl. She's supposed to be like 6 years old in the show. And I'd say that's about right. And she's younger than Bugsley for sure. Now, one of her favorite toys is a Marie Antoinette doll. And this does show up several times through the character's history. But Pugsley always cuts the head off of the doll at Wednesday's request. Wednesday is a very talented painter, and she's a very talented writer, as this is a big part of the Wednesday show as it comes down. She is very physically strong. She is obsessed with death, of course. She enjoys being miserable. She's allergic to color. and she's pretty awesome. In 1991 is where Wednesday really had her character developed so much. And that is Christina Ricci's portrayal. That's where Wednesday really got pushed to the forefront, being the most popular Addams Family character. So Christina Ricci's portrayal, Wednesday is significantly a darker personality than the 1960s. She's far more creepy and kind of rude. She has very sadistic tendencies. She has that fascination with the Bermuda Triangle, as I mentioned. She has a deep admiration for her great aunt Calpurnia Addams, who was burned as a witch in 1706 after she danced naked through the streets and had enslaved a minister. Yeah. Make sure I don't forget anything here. And yeah, she mostly kind of depicted the same through the cartoons and stuff and such. But where her character really changes is in the Netflix series Wednesday. So in the Wednesday show, they give her they give her these psychic powers. Like, yeah, they give her these psychic powers, and I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't like her. I don't like them having powers. I like them just being creepy, kooky, mysterious, and spooky, and just being different. But she can foresee important things in a person's past or future through touching them. Because of her abilities, Wednesday is called a raven, as her visions are largely negative, which causes her to distance herself from others. And it and we find out that Morticia is actually called a dove, since her visions are usually positive. So we have this yin and yang relationship with her and her mother. We also see her playing the cello. She is an avid fencer. She knows how to speak German, Italian, and Tagalog. And she has a lot more character development, which you can just listen to our Wednesday podcast with that. But she's been played by mostly her most iconic roles have been played by Lisa Loring in the original series, Christina Ricci in Addams Family Films, and now Jenna Ortega in the Netflix show. And I don't think she is going anywhere. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's a Wednesday. So Pugsley is kind of interesting. Pugsley doesn't really get much depth really at all. He's introduced, of course, in the original show as the older brother, though. I'd say he's probably about Wednesday's about 6. He's probably about 10 here. And he likes doing weird experiments, mostly blowing up stuff and destructive stuff. He's very much like a mini Fester, if you will. But he's adventurous and he has some funny moments and stuff. But he is the eldest child. He's the eldest child of Morticia and Gomez. He's probably about 10 years old, I would say. He always wears a striped t-shirt and shorts, and he was originally unnamed, of course, and he gets his name. No interesting story about his name in my notes here. I apologize. But he's a mischief child. He likes to commit deplorable acts with his sister. He's usually fat. He is usually overweight. But in the current Wednesday show, they have made him just tall and skinny, which kind of just changes the whole character. But he's supposed to be about 4'7" and weighs like 100 pounds. But he overeats pieces of cake at birthday parties all the time. And how Charles Addams wanted this character depicted is an energetic monster of a boy, blonde red hair, pop blue eyes, and a dedicated troublemaker. In other words, the kid next door, genius in his own way. He makes toy guillotines, full size racks, threatens to poison his sister, can turn himself into a Mr. Hyde with an ordinary chemical set, and his voice is hoarse. He's sometimes allowed to smoke a cigar. When the characters were given names for the television series, okay, here we go. Here's my notes here. He originally was going to be called Pubert. There, based on the world, based on puberty, but thought it sounded too sexual, and they gave him the name Pugsley instead. But they took the name Pubert, and they gave it to the third child, Addams Family Values. So interesting. And Pugsley was originally played by child actor Ken Weathermax. He's more joyful and inventive. He displays outlandish engineering skills. He created a disintegrator gun, an anti-gravity gun, and him and Gomez actually created a computer named Wizzo and a robot named Smiley. Pugsley and his younger sister Wednesday often play together, have a little sibling rivalry, and they try to kill each other. And Pugsley does have an unusual hobby of stealing road signs, which he posts in his wall and bedroom. In the original show, he has a pet octopus named Aristotle, And later on adaptations, Aristotle will have a half sibling named Socrates, who is Wendy's pet squid. And yeah, I don't think I missed much about Pegsley until we get to the Wednesday series. So in the Wednesday series, unlike most betrayals, he is now has black hair. He is skinnier. He's back to being the younger. He's back to be younger than Wednesday, and he's shown to be bullied at school as well, which Wednesday protects him from. He is very close to Wednesday, and they give him the ability to channel electricity, but they still keep him to be an absolute and utter idiot. So, what are you gonna do? That's Pugsley. So, on Uncle Fester, moving on with Uncle Fester. Uncle Fester was originally played by Jackie Coogan in the original Addams Family show. Uncle Fester is described by Charles Addams as incorrigible, except for the good nature of the family and the ignorance of the police, would ordinarily be under lock and key. The complexion, like that of Morticia, is dead white. His eyes are pig-like and deeply embedded, circled unhealthily in black. No teeth, absolutely hairless. He likes to fish, but usually employs dynamite or any other unfair means. He keeps falcons on the roof, which he uses for hunting. His one costume is a black greatcoat and enormous collar, summer and winter, and he is fat with pudgy little hands and feet. Fester is a very popular character. He's pretty much the most creepy and kooky character usually. He sets his showers to scalding setting. He feeds garden plants blood, and he releases an eagle one time to attack his neighbor's homing pigeons. He he's interesting. Fester has a strange ability to generate electricity, which they give this power later to Pugsley to kind of rip off. In the Addams Family 90s movie, he loses his memory and he regains it after being struck by lightning, leading to gain that power to channel electricity. So that's how they come up with the idea. In other adaptations, never stated how he got that power. He usually demonstrates that he can channel electricity by putting a light bulb in his mouth, which is his signature stick. He claims to possess 110 volts of power in one episode of the original sitcom. In the 2022 Netflix series, he can shoot lightning directly from his hands because, powers, whatever. Uncle Fester has severe migraines at times and appears to enjoy them. He relieves these migraines by placing his head in a large screw press and tightening it to levels that normal people would not be able to withstand. He's absolute nuts. Now, in the original 1960s sitcom, Fester is said to be Morticia's maternal uncle, and his name rhymes with that of Morticia's mother, so Hester and Fester. Hester and Fester Frump. However, from the 1970s onward, they make him Gomez's brother. And despite being very close, he admits sometimes despising Gomez and can be jealous of his relationship with Morticia. And he's often seen trying to find love with absolute chaotic consequences. In all adaptations, he's he's a very, very good uncle to Wednesday Pugsley. And, and yeah, never mind that. That's it. Okay. He is played by Jackie Coogan in the original series, and they play jokes about like what his last name really is in the original series. In one episode, when asked his last name, he says that he just forgot it. Uncle Fester is a huge part of the '90s show, in that he's played by Christopher Lloyd, and in in the first movie, he has forgotten his memory, and he is kind of like swindling or manipulating the Addams family to try to get money for his fake mother and playing gags on them. But, that works out. In Family values, he's main character again, where he is trying to find a wife, and she is a murderer. But yeah, he's now played by Fred Armisen in the Netflix show Wednesday. Now, he could have kind of reinvented this character here, but he really didn't. I would say he's very close to Jackie Coogan's version of Uncle Fester. I mean, he's okay, and they're probably going to give him his own show. I think they announced it, and yeah, they announced it a while back that they're going to develop a spin-off series focused on Uncle Fester, which is fine. It's fine. And that is pretty much the gist of Uncle Fester. No real changes there. The main things to know about Grandmama is that in the original show, well, Charles Addams says, I'll say this. Charles Addams says this is disrespectful old hag is the mother of Gomez. She willingly helps with the dishes, cheats at solitaire, and is thoroughly dishonest. She too is a favorite with the children and will make them cookies in the shapes of bats, skulls, and bones. She's good humored about all and can be hilarious. The complexion is dark, the hair is white, frisbee, and uncombed. She has light beard and a large mole. She wears a shawl on all occasions, thick socks, and fleece slippers with a bombazine skirt. Yes. Grandmama is usually the witch of the family. She concocts potions and spells, dabbles in fortune telling and knife throwing. She is a grandmother of the Addams children, Puzzling Wednesday, and although her relationship to other family members is less consistent, Grandmama first appeared with them in that New Yorker. So she's a character that gets kind of switched around of who she related to. So I think I prefer her to be Gomez's mother as opposed to Morticia's mom. That's just my opinion. I like her better being Gomez's mom. And that is me. Next, moving on to Adam's family is Lurch, and Lurch is their butler. Lurch is kind of a zombie character. He was first played by Ted Cassidy in 1964 to 66, and he's been played by Carl Strickland in 1991, John DeSantis in 1998, Zachary James in 2011, George Berkia 2022, and Jonas Sotamo in 2025. Lurch is 6'9" and is this gloomy butler. In the original Addams Family television series, Lurch has a deep and resonant voice. He is capable of normal speech, but usually he just moans and goes, "Ugh," you know. "Ugh." He is not a very good butler, but he is the least faithful. The children are his favorites. He guards them very much, and he has a good influence at all times. His eyes are kind of opaque. He has skinny hair, and he's very much like a Frankenstein or a zombie type character. And the family usually summons him with an ever present bell pull from a hangman's noose. And when pulled, it produces a long gong noise that shakes the house, to which Lurch instantly appears in response, "You rang?" And he really comes out of nowhere. Most of his history we don't really know yet. I think they'll explore it more in the Wednesday show eventually. But we don't know his first name. It could just be Lurch, but everything was pretty much unspecified. And he together shows he could possibly be a Frankenstein's monster put together, but we really don't know. We really don't know his origin. In the 2019 film, they kind of gave him an origin somewhat as an escaped mental patient from an abandoned haunted house. Now they have his mansion, and he met Gomez Mortician the Thing. and they hired him as a butler, but he doesn't really have much of an origin yet, but we will get there eventually. Next is Thing. Now, Thing is a disembodied hand. It kind of somewhat the pet, and he has a very good nature. Ted Thing was originally Ted Cassidy, the actor of of Lurch's Hand, was the original part of it. And recently, we got an origin of Thing that let's see, that Thing is actually the hand of what's his name, Knight. Gosh, Slurp, the villain in Wednesday. What's his first name? Gosh, I don't know. But there was a friend. Yeah, here we go. This is it, I think. Thing the thing that's been with family since his Ghost was a child. I can't remember his name. My apologies. But in the latest Wednesday show, it's revealed that Thing was the hand of a friend of Gomez. And this friend kind of wanted to use Gomez electrical power to cure his sister of being a Hyde. So he ties Gomez up to this machine, and Morticia cuts his hand off, cuts off Knight's hand. And because of the electricity, the hand is still alive as it leaves. And they take this hand, they name it Thing, and it becomes their family friend. So other characters in the Addams family, of course, is the iconic Cousin It. Cousin It is basically just this pile of hair. We have not seen Cousin It in the new Wednesday show. I don't even think he's been mentioned, but he is introduced as a cousin of Gomez Addams. He's an occasional guest in Addams' home, entering and exiting through the chimney, and he has his own quarters, which are furnished in proportion to his size, though. But he's had many jobs as like an actor, a singer, a marriage counselor, a zoo curator, and his his physical appearance is the subject of one episode when he begins to lose his hair, but we never really see him. He's just this big ball of hair. We don't know much about his story. It hasn't really been dwelled into much, but yeah, he was voiced by Snoop Dogg in Addams Family 2 cartoon, and wow, he speaks solely in gibberish and talks like because it is fairly iconic and pretty dang hilarious. The last character to talk about is Ophelia, and we kind of really already kind of hit on her and her situation. She will be a bigger role in the Addams Family in the Wednesday show, as and originally in the original show, she was played by Carolyn Jones and wearing a blonde wig. She's very hippie and flower child like, and supposedly she's been locked into the nut house by Hester Frump, and she's been hidden. And we will get more about that as as the show goes on. So, especially probably get some story about her relationship with Gomez and how they were originally supposed to be married. So that could be interesting. And that's Sam's family. So some brief things that have happened through the years, different incarnations you can check out. You can check out the 1960s show, of course. There's also a 1973 cartoon created by Hanna-Barbera. In that show, the family consists of Gomez, Morticia, Wednesday Pugsley, Grandmama, Uncle Fester Thing, Cousin It, and Lurch. It has everybody in there. And that's kind of where they give somewhat of powers to them, kinda. I haven't watched the show, so I'm not sure what the powers really are. I'll look into it. But it basically has them kinda traveling around in, like, an RV that looks like their house, and that's where they get introduced to Scooby Doo as well. So there's some episodes in there for that. But in the early 90s, that's where things really get going. So, an executive, Scott Rudin in 20th Century Fox, pitched to the studio an adaptation of Charles Addams' The Addams Family. The studio enthusiastically agreed they would make a good film, and they wanted to purchase the rights. But Fox did not make the film because the rights were sold to Orion Pictures. If you remember, the they were owned by Charles Addams' second wife there. So, yeah, the production moved when she sold the remaining rights. Hold on, I'm missing something here. I'm so sorry. Okay, so those okay. The production before what Adams when sold the remaining to Orion and put the film in production through the producing. Okay, so Tim Burton was signed on was reached to direct, but he declined doing it because he was busy filming Batman Returns. So Barry Sonnenfeld took the job. Now, if you don't know who Barry Sonnenfeld is, he is a guy that he's directed the Men in Black trilogy. He directed Wild Wild West. He directed the Addams Family movies, of course, and he is mostly known for that. Men in Black movies, and he was a producer on Lemmy Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events, 2004, and he was a producer on Enchanted and Disenchanted, but mostly known for the Men in Black movies, is what Barry is. And this was Barry's first directing job after previously serving as the director of photography for several films. Yeah. And the movie was a big and utter hit, a huge hit. And it has currently a 67% based on 57 reviews on a Rotten Tomatoes, 6 out of 10 average rating. I think it is fantastic. It was awarded Best Horror Film of the Year by 1991, even though I wouldn't say it's full on horror, but it is in the Horror Hall of Fame. The movie is, in my opinion, if this movie wasn't made, I don't think the Addams Family would be talked about really much today. Like, this movie cemented the Addams Family. Is arguably the best portrayal of the characters there's ever been, even better than the original show. This blew, this made Christina Ricci's career. This changed things so much and really, really changed the game for really everybody there. Definitely kind of the hugest adaptation. During this time, they try to keep the message flowing, and they created a Saturday morning cartoon of the Addams Family that would go on ABC in the morning. I do remember watching this cartoon just a little bit, and the animation is just about like the 70s one, but just kind of a little bit more updated, a little bit more kookier and all that stuff. They kind of made more people they made Lurch blue skinned, and and that was kind of interesting. But this show is very hard to find on DVD. I was not able to find it really at all. But there was a lot of action figures for it. There was a lot of things that came out for it. And it is pretty popular, but it is not streaming on anything that I could find. But they want to continue the success of the 90s movies and kind of kept that going, fast tracked it. Addams Family Values would come out around this time too, and it is depicted as more of a funnier Addams Family movie. The first one is kind of a little bit more serious. This is a lot more funnier. We have Addams and Pugsley and Wednesday going to a summer camp and all that funniness. But the main point of the movie, and we get to introduce another child, by the way, But the main driving force of the movie is Fester trying to find a wife. It is absolutely hilarious. I really love this movie, and I wish they would have made a sequel. But basically, what happened was I think that I think they just kind of screwed up the marketing for it. It it didn't it didn't really like take off like the way it needed to. Barry Sonnenfeld said in later interviews that he was disappointed in the box office for the second film, and he thinks the first film was more romantic, and the second film was funnier. And part of the reason it didn't do as well is the marketing of the movie was so similar to the first one that people didn't think it was going to add any new story, didn't think it was going to add anything to that first movie and continuing a story. So it was kind of like not really worth watching. That would be the same old shtick. And I don't, I mean, I think it was a real good continuation, just my opinion. In the late 90s, in 1998, they would try to release another Addams Family movie. Following the success of the theatrically released movies, Addams Family and Addams Family Values, Saban Entertainment. If you don't know what Saban Entertainment is, it created and known as the Power Rangers. So Raul Julia has passed away near the end of M's Family Values. Rest in peace, Raul. You were amazing. And arguably the greatest Gomez. But Saban wanted to negotiate to purchase the home video production rights to Addams Family, and he wanted to take advantage of the direct to video market. So he wanted to, and because Raul Julia passed away, Paramount decided not to make a third film out of respect for Raul Julia, and because probably they didn't think it was going to make a lot of money. So Saban and the Power Rangers decided to reboot the series only 5 years after, 4 years after the last movie. Jeez. So they co-produced a movie called Addams Family Reunion with Tim Curry as Gomez and Daryl Hannah as Morticia. You can't really find this movie anywhere. I've never seen it. I remember it being on ABC Family. I can't really find it anywhere except maybe you could find it on a VHS somewhere, but it's very, very hard to find. It's yeah, it's bad. And it was used to be like kind of like a backdoor pilot for a show called Addams Family Reunion, but it didn't even have the same actors. So Addams Family Reunion absolutely tanked because it didn't have the same actors and the show wasn't really going to make it at all. And, and after new Addams Family show, there's not really much to add there. It's just really failed. Um, Things didn't start picking up for the Addams Family again until about 2019. So we have like 20 years later, the Addams Family started picking up again. That's crazy. 20 years. That's nuts. But that's how it happened. And they decided to kind of go into Charles Adams's original sketches and somewhat kind of bring back that little charm there. And they made an animated movie of the Addams Family. It grossed 100 million in the United States, 103 million worldwide for $203 million. It was fairly well received, somewhat. I thought it was okay, but it holds a 46% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's kind of had mixed or average reviews, but you know, kids liked it, so there you go. There was a sequel that came out just 2 years later, which I haven't seen yet, but that seemed to do somewhat worse. So most people are saying it's altogether ooky, not in a good way. Yeah, I didn't see it at all, but it looks like the Addams Family like are at the beach or whatever. And then we have the Wednesday series of 2025. As we know that Tim Burton helped direct this. and create it because he wanted to do Batman Returns. He never took on the project of the Addams family. But here he is now with the showrunners that kind of wrote Smallville. And as I've talked about Wednesday in my previous podcasts, I don't like her having powers, and I wouldn't mind an updated movie of the Addams family. And I think these characters could pull off something good. But I think the whole charm of the Addams family is just them being this weird family in a normal world with nobody else being weird and just kind of the Addams family clan. And we know there's different like cousins and relatives and people they know that that have some oddities and stuff. And yeah, I know that, but like I just I don't think it works if we have like this whole Harry Potter school and people with powers and stuff. It just takes away that ability and that charm. But that's just me. So there is essentially the history of the Addams family and their characters in a makeshift way. So thank you for joining me, and make sure you tune in to our Batman Day podcast with the topic: Did Christopher Nolan ruin Batman? I'm Brian Peters, and I hope this podcast thrilled you. I hope it educates you. And if nothing else, I hope it left you gravely amused.